Hello, my name is Dr. Liam Schubel, and welcome to another edition of Schubel Vision Elite Interviews, where today we'll be interviewing Dr. Thom Gelardi, the founder of Sherman College of Chiropractic, and I'm joined here with my friend Dr. Frankie Hahn and Dr. Judd Nogrady of the Schubel Vision Elite team. Enjoy the interview.
Sherman was at the research clinic in the 30s. I don't know when, but the war broke out in what, 40 or 41?
Yeah.
41. So he was there before the war broke out. He wanted to leave. Then he went back also and got his other 18 months. So he had a 4-year degree. But that's exactly some of the chronology. But he did a lot of work too. They were doing work with reading thermography, reading heat patterns along the spine, or just they were adjusting wherever they found the hot or cold places, and they would use the back of their hand. And then an engineer who became a chiropractor, Dawson Dixon Evans, came up with the instrument.
Oh, okay.
But it was Sherman. Well, there's a lot of different influences that took place behind the scenes in chiropractic. I was thinking driving up the road today, this is how some people first like the messenger and then they get the message. And some people get the message and then because of the message, they like the messenger.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. Are you familiar with ontology?
Ontology is the study of words, is it? Or
no?
No.
Being.
Being, okay.
There's a thing in philosophy. There's 2 branches to philosophy, and one branch includes metaphysics, which chiropractic is part of that branch, the explanation of why you do what you do and so on. It's not spooky metaphysics, but it also includes ontology. Bill Bayan practiced ontology. I've been up there and talked with him. He took down his chiropractic sign and put up a sign. And he did some wonderful
healer.
Yeah. And put up a sign, ontology, and his practice were like that, but it's doing the same thing.
Right.
And then he took down the ontology sign and put up the chiropractic, and of course people liked chiropractic, but they didn't know what ontology was. But I used to subscribe to the Ontology magazine, which is, again, it's a beautiful philosophy, but someone told me they made a talk in Davenport, and it may have been Doug Gates. I just don't remember who it was. It may not have been Doug Gates. They made a talk, and the students really liked to talk about the vertebra. But then he says he took up 2 tuning forks, maybe TSC, strikes one here, brings it up, and then brings this other tuning fork next to it, and it starts vibrating, and then he brings it over here, and it's still vibrating. And he said, with energy. And so if you can get your patient to pick up your energy, then that's what it's all about. So it has nothing to do with moving vertebra. Well, I wonder why. Maybe some people just have special energy, but people go to 10 chiropractors and nothing happens. They go to one and say, he just has the right energy.
Yeah.
And maybe even that chiropractor, Dr. Sherman used to say that, Tom, sometime you'll be in practice and maybe 90% of your patients are doing well under care. And this is when we were into symptoms. And that's when I was trained in symptoms. We were trained in symptoms, and that's the way I practiced my first years of practice. And I gradually said, this is getting to be didn't make sense. And I can tell you why. But anyway, Dr. Sherman said, you're going to see some patient that you're not getting results on. They're going to go down the street to a chiropractor that's only getting 30% results with his patients. But that one just happens to fit in with them.
That's right.
So you give up what you're doing and do what that guy's doing, and you haven't gained anything. You're just jumping around all the time. But, I know Dr. Sherman was very much into symptoms, and he was concerned about me getting out from under the symptom part of it. And Dr. Sherman would send people for blood tests and urine tests and listen to the heart and do all this other stuff. When I had a patient in crisis, I would get Dr. Sherman, had a patient with meningitis, and they're bent backwards in the opisthotonous posture. And I said, Betty, I went near the room because we lived in that mill house. And I said, Betty, first of all, they think I'm Catholic, and I'm not, but they don't like Catholics. They don't like Yankees. They don't like chiropractors. Mm-hmm. And I says, and I don't think they're going to like chiropractor that has a patient die on them. And this baby's going to die with meningitis if I know what I know. So as I'm going to get, Betty said, you ought to go and try to help that because medicine has nothing to offer it, and you ought to see what you could do for it. I said, okay. Call Dr. Sherman, tell him, hurry up and get up here. So we went in there, and when I adjusted the baby, she put him on the lap, and she would hold him. But Dr. Sherman was on his way up. I adjusted the child. The child immediately relaxed and got out of that arch backwards, and the fever started going down. Well, by the time Dr. Sherman got up, that fever was down. Took him a half hour to get there, or 45 minutes, whatever. And so Dr. Sherman said, just go ahead and, he said, I wouldn't have him come on out to the office. I'd make house calls, and I'd check him every day, at least once a day. So I just keep a close watch on him. Well, sometimes I get someone, I think, boy, they have pneumonia, because I could tell in the lungs are gurgling. I used a stethoscope and took blood pressures and so on. So Dr. Sherman said, well, yeah, there's nerve interference, but you want to keep a good watch on him and just watch him real carefully. Mm-hmm. So when he's subluxated, you give an adjustment. If there's no subluxation, stay that way. Okay, fine. Somebody else with this other crisis, okay, just watch him real carefully and give him adjustment. Yeah, this is serious. I could do that without the symptom thing.
Right.
All he's telling me is watch him carefully, watch him carefully, adjust him when he needs to.
Right.
And so later on, when I'd be in this 10 years later, when I'm talking to Dr. Sherman, I says, I don't see why we pay this kind of attention to symptoms, because they're not influencing what you do.
That's right.
You decide what you're going to do strictly on the spine, and you could divide that up. He doesn't say, well, now let's see, for this kind of condition, I'm going to make it a right atlas, or I'm going to make it a left atlas, or it's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
So why are you doing this? He said, if you're into court, because he was in the ICA and he was in head of the committee on malpractice. He said, if you're in the courtroom and they come in and they had pneumonia, or they had a heart problem, they had this, and you weren't aware of it, I said, Dr. Sherman, I think you've got it backwards. If they think that you're concerned about that, then you better be an expert in it.
That's right.
And you're more in malpractice trouble doing it that way. Yeah, maybe you have a point, And so by the end of his life, we had him coming around. But he said, two things. He says, that malpractice chairmanship that I had, that really wrecked my practice. I was so dang nervous I couldn't practice anymore. But he's practicing on the wrong basis. Yeah. And Jancy, when he was in the English case down in Mississippi, was it? When he testified there, trying to get Dr. Dale English out on and they were bringing malpractice. I can't remember what had taken place. But Jancy said, they slaughtered me on that witness stand, that we have to get deeper into medicine. And he said, he wrote about that. He said, that English case is, I was in school then because they used to pass the hat to help donate, to help these chiropractors who were, he wasn't in malpractice. He was just sued for practicing chiropractic without a license. Mm. There were 6 states that were not licensed at the time. This was one of the southern states. That made Jancy go more to medicine. And if he was a real smart guy, he would have gone less to medicine. That's the answer to malpractice.
Yeah, well, when you read the Green Books, BJ talks throughout the green books about getting sick people well.
Yeah, I know.
And how would you define sickness, right? Maybe symptomatology. Some people would say. Some people would say no, right? And so that's how I feel like the Sherman mindset was a development or an advancement of the philosophy of chiropractic. We took it out of that realm of getting sick people well for the health of it, to optimizing the human expression.
What BJ thought, when I put it together, BJ wrote in his book on volume 18 that you don't have to do this in practice. What we do here with all these medical tests is because it's research. We're trying to prove chiropractic medically. And so he was saying, you don't have to do this in practice. And a lot of times he would say, don't get involved in the symptoms. So I think when he said get sick people well, he didn't know maybe the courts would interpret it one way. I don't think that's what he was interpreting.
Yeah.
I don't think we brought anything new to chiropractic that BJ didn't. The only thing is that we weighted things differently. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I think he waited in the day when he was living with Emerson and Thoreau and all these. They were running lyceums all over the country.
Okay.
They were having lyceums. And he liked doing that. He went to Milan, Illinois, or with his dad when he's a little boy, to hear the people with, what was it? What they call it? Spiritualists.
Yeah.
And that worked its way into the philosophy. But he liked this lyceum idea. And so he kept stressing the philosophy. But he knew the mission. And he did speak about the mission.
Let me ask you this, because D.D. Palmer mentions thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And some people interpret that as being the cause of vertebral subluxation. And therefore, as chiropractors, our mission is to remove anything that could cause a subluxation. Our mission is to adjust subluxation. How do you feel on about that? Are as a profession, should we be focused on thoughts, traumas, and toxins and eliminating all those in a patient's world, or should we be focused on detection, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation, and why?
Someone asked DD that question,
Mm-hmm.
and DD had a great answer for him.
Okay.
He said, we consider the subluxation a cause, which I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But anyway, a causative factor. But he said, if you're going to get into the cause of the cause, it's going to be like the story of the house that Jack built. Now, and they've also said, because of a nail that fell out of the horse's shoe, that he lost the shoe and then he couldn't run. And because he couldn't run, this happened and that happened. And there's no end. And actually, if you get into, but he answered it beautifully. He said, if you get into the cause of the cause, it's an arbitrary thing where you want to say the causes. You'll be completely out of chiropractic. You'll be completely out of even those things. The cause of the cause, if you want to say, is if you into God, you could say, well, God's the cause of all causes, and sit there and do nothing.
Good point. Yeah.
You have to say, if you get into all, somehow that we say that when the external invasive force is greater than the internal resistive force, something's going to happen. You could break your arm. You get poisoned. Something bad is going to happen. Those things are causative factors, not only of subluxation, but they're causative factors of a whole lot of things. But when they do cause, and then there's a cycle. I do it as a circle. And where do you intervene? Our point of intervention is, and again, we're an organic thing where every part affects every other part. So if you intervene at the subluxation, that affects their mind. And so if they could build better resistance toward mental stress. It affects their nutrition. They have different callings for food. They just desire different foods and so on. It affects exercise. People said, I never cared about exercise, but now, I think better. I want to exercise more. And so, but if they're exercising, that could correct a subluxation. That could correct your nutrition. Or nutrition, that could affect all these other things. Why don't we do all of them? But why waste time with all those others? Because that's what we specialize in. And we have so much talent. Not that the other things are bad. They're just not chiropractic.
Got it. Exactly the point. Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
So detection, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation, that's the mission of chiropractic.
Yeah, and I make clear to my patients that there's a lot more to life than just the correcting of subluxations. And if I could give you a perfect spine and you held your head underwater, you're still going to drown.
Right.
So you have to look as an individual. I do a lot more for my health than just being free of subluxation. And I'm saying you should look at these other things. Well, what do you think I should eat? Look, there's lots of books on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Go read a few books or magazines or get some videotapes, and you'll see contradictions. But then you have to I don't have infallible knowledge. I may be making mistakes in my own nutrition.
Sure.
But I listen to my body, and then I look at what's available, what makes sense to me. And you do the same thing. And you have to, with exercise or anything else, you have to use it or lose it, but don't abuse it. So, and that's with a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying with drugs and alcohol or things of that nature, but I'm thinking with a lot of things. Well, drugs and alcohol, I think we're always accumulating survival values. Some are constructive survival values, and some are destructive. And I even think in the formation of Sherman College, that our constructive values, whatever we send out into the universe, is there to stay, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so nothing's wasted. You do all the good you could do, and it's there. We don't run the universe.
Right.
But patients have to know there's a lot more to health than what we do. But I think it's indispensable to health. I don't care how good you feel, and no matter what you're doing, if you're subluxated, your body's not functioning as well as it could.
Yeah, exactly right. That's our chief contribution to health, right? There's so many components of health, but what chiropractic provides in the health paradigm is the detection, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation.
Exactly.
And that optimizes every other aspect of health.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But if you optimize any of those other aspects, it optimizes our thing too.
True. Good point.
So, yeah. I think a person who, lives on Cracker Jacks, they're not going to hold an adjustment as well.
Yeah.
But do they need vitamins, or do they need salads, or do they need, I don't know what they need, but listening to your body is a good thing.
Yeah. So let's get back to Lyle Sherman. What was he like as a human? What was he like as a person? You knew him, from a professional level, and I think from what I'm gathering, you had a level of friendship with him as well.
He was, first of all, he was humble, not a pretense humble. He just enjoyed life. He liked little children. He liked everybody, really. But he liked particularly little children. One time I saw him spend a lot of time watching a squirrel, and he was playing tricks on the squirrel, and the squirrel was playing tricks on him, and he could spend a lot of time there. He loved fishing. He had a little trailer that he could pull behind his car. And before they had even a paved road in Alaska, he made 3 or 4 trips with his 2 daughters and his wife, sleeping in that trailer, seeing how few dollars they could spend on the entire trip, not because they were cheap necessarily, but just for the fun of seeing how little they could spend and fishing along the way and so on. He liked the outdoors, being he was not wealthy by any means. If in practice if a patient came in and he had his reception room filled, probably half the reception were of the chiropractors and their families that he didn't charge.
Wow. Wow.
And always mixers and everything. I said, Dr. Sherman, I couldn't stand mixers. And sometimes he'd say, Tom, going to the meeting in Columbia, it's 100 miles away. You want to ride down with me? Sure, he's good. And he said, I have Dr. So-and-so coming with us. I can't be in the same car with the mixer. They would just, but they'd all have their families there getting checked and then going out and doing their thing. So, again, he was by no means never wealthy, but he just loved life. He and I never exchanged jokes. I guess we were coming down to about, what, 30, almost 35 years difference in our age.
Okay.
But we visited a heck of a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever he went on conventions or so on, I always took care of his patients, went down there and try to repay him for some of the stuff that he did for me. But a couple of days a week, I'd see his patients. And in fact, I'd see Dr. Earl Taylor's patients also when he would leave. Because Earl was very kind to us and very nice to us. In fact, I couldn't get anyone to co-sign a note to get an x-ray machine, but Earl had just met me a couple of weeks beforehand. And I went there and asked him if he would sign a note for me. And he said, sure, bring it over, and just sign the note. But Dr. Sherman was generous, not financially generous, because he didn't have much money to be generous with. Wasn't in poverty particularly, but just an ordinary guy. You'd be surprised how ordinary he was. Yeah. Oh, I know. Like I say, he and I never swapped jokes. I don't do a lot of joking anyway, but he and Earl Taylor could sit all afternoon and tell each other one joke after another. So he enjoyed a joke, and he was a wonderful man. But oh, I know. Like I say, with an office filled with patients, if he had a problem with a patient, he would work and work and work till, I don't mean adjusting necessarily, but analyzing and wondering what, what would be the correction for that patient.
He was meticulous.
Oh, very meticulous. But the thing about it is, he'd leave people waiting an hour and a half,
Right. So business out the door.
Oh, no,
that was
not.
It was, we're stopping everything until I figure this out.
Oh, yeah,
Got
absolutely.
Got it. And so, in essence, would you call him at one point in B.J. Palmer's life, Lyle was his right-hand man, so to speak, as far as the research clinic? Would that be an accurate statement, or what was the relationship?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
As far as the research clinic.
Yeah.
Because I think at some point he gave up actually teaching and just spent all of his day in the research clinic.
Okay, so BJ definitely considered him top of all tops as far as his ability to detect, analyze, and adjust vertebral subluxation.
I have a big picture of BJ that he autographed to Dr. Sherman. Picture of DD and BJ that I guess chiropractors bought them or such.
Yeah.
But BJ wrote a nice thing. He's, among the many other few, and among the few are you.
Wow.
You're one of the greatest.
Wow.
And because I think that he is the one who contributed pattern work, saying just going to the hot spots or the cold spots, that's not it. Because those cold spots and hot spots may come some days and go other days.
Got it.
Why don't we just note them over a period of time and just watch the patient and see if the ones that stay are the ones we ought to be concerned with.
I got it. Okay.
And you don't have to adjust where the pattern is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had patients with pattern in the lumbar spine, none in the cervical spine or thoracic, and still adjust the atlas, and those patterns would break up. So and go away. When they come back, it'd be the exact same pattern. You could let the patient go a week or so, and the pattern would never leave till you adjust them, and they'd go.
So Dr. Lyle Sherman also had a bunch of different patents. Is that correct, for different chiropractic analysis and technique?
Yes. He had the posture constant.
Wow, that was Lyle Sherman. I remember reading about that in one of the green books.
And what they started with, too, is that they would mark different patterns of where the feet were placed.
Okay.
And they would be numbered. And then how many inches up the patient put their head, and that would be noted.
Yeah.
So on, very specific. But they found that after the adjustment, the patient wouldn't put their feet in the same place anymore, and the level of how they held their head would be different. But they still use a posture constant, and they had the tempometer that carried the NCM at a constant speed.
Oh yes, right, correct.
But now they could actually build that into the instrument, so that was his. Then he had this thing where if the patient's on a side posture table, the shoulder doesn't actually drop, but you could adjust the shoulder down and lower the shoulder so that the spine stayed straight.
Correct.
And that was on a side posture. That was his invention. He also came to my office one day and said, "Tom, I have this on a seal. It's sealed up, but I said, I want to break the seal and show you." I don't know if you're familiar with the movable bucky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, he came up with movable bucky before medicine did.
Wow.
And the first full spine x-ray was taken by chiropractors. It was displayed at the World's Fair in 1927, I believe. But he came up with a movable bucky. But he had never patented it. But he said, "Here it is." And he broke the seal in front of me. And all the drawings, technical drawings for movable bucky that would be there. So he had quite a few inventions.
Okay.
And quite a few things of, like, say, particularly the pattern work. Going from just looking at breaks to pattern, that was a big thing in chiropractic.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that interview with the founder of Sherman College, Dr. Thom Gelardi. This is Dr. Liam Schubel signing off with my good friends Dr. Frankie Hahn and Dr. Judd Nogrady. And we'll see you next time on the Schubel Vision Elite exclusive interview.